You are controlled by the opinions of other people. And you say, no, that's not me. Well, let's see if this is, for your consideration, 15 things, 15 behaviors. See if any of these describe you. Starting with this side of the umbrella. That's right. That's an umbrella. How's about you're overly competitive? You're a little bit shy. Hush, hush, we've got more to go. You've got control issues. You're insecure. You suffer from peer pressure, avoidance issues. I don't want to see that person. You're self-conscious. You've got a fair amount of oversensitivity. We move to this side of the umbrella. Could never be a weatherman. You are easily embarrassed. You're codependent. You've got to have that person or thing. Otherwise, you're given to gossip. You have a fear of failure. You're reactionary. Everything is just kind of, whoa. Or you're really defensive when somebody says, well, virtually anything. Or you don't handle rejection well. Do any of those things describe you? Then we have got some great news for you. The Bible has a cure. You say, wait a second, the Bible doesn't talk about things like that. What are you talking about? The Bible doesn't speak about insecurity. Peer pressure doesn't speak about peer pressure. Well, you're correct about that, but the Bible does use a term called the fear of man. And that is an umbrella term that hangs over all of these issues. You see, all of these contemporary terms all fall underneath a biblical term called the fear of man. And I fear man. That is probably our first problem when it comes to resolving emotional issues. You and I have a tendency to describe things with contemporary parlance, to use perhaps DSM-5 language, to use psychiatric terms, and then we conclude, well, the Bible doesn't talk about this stuff, so how can I possibly find a solution there? Well, for starters, our ancestors thought the answers were there. This is Richard Baxter. This is a Christian directory. I was going to call it a dictionary because it's as big as one. It's a Christian directory, and inside of this, look at the print on this bad boy. Inside are all of these things, all of these issues. Now, maybe it uses a different word, but these emotional issues that we think the Bible does not talk about, the Bible does speak about. It just uses biblical language and not watered down language. Therefore, our ancestors, our Protestant forefathers, would find the biblical language, and they wrote down all of the verses that address it so that you and I can actually have a biblical cure if we label things biblically. So that's our starting place. Let's label things biblically. All those umbrella issues fall underneath the biblical phrase used over 300 times, the fear of man. Here's just one of those verses. The fear of man, says Proverbs 29:25, lays a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is safe. The fear of man, there's our term, it lays a snare. We got to stop right there. If you have this thing, it's tripping you up in different ways, but the Bible says whoever trusts in the Lord is safe. So it identifies, diagnoses your problem, and then says, here's your cure. If you have a fear of man, then you are going to be constantly tripping up. You're going to be doing these things. Your fear of man problem manifests itself in these different ways. Now you're saying to yourself, well, what exactly is this fear of man business? This is the sense that people's opinion about you is paramount. You have to have it. If you do not get approval from some people or all people, your reputation isn't high, then you feel really low. Your issue is that you have got to be affirmed. You don't want anybody to think anything bad about you because you will crumble if they do. That is a fear of man problem. Now, understanding that, let's take a look at these issues a little bit more closely and see if this describes you. And I think you're going to see your relationship to the accurate biblical diagnosis that you've got a fear of man problem. You're overly competitive. You say, well, Connect the dots there. Okay, you got to win. Do you know that guy? He's got to win. Got to win. What's going inside of our hearts is, if I lose, they're going to think I'm a loser because they fear man's opinion. See how this works? You've got control. I've got to be in control of this, because if I'm not in control of this, things don't go right. People will think that I'm not good, or that I'm not powerful, or that I'm not smart, and they won't think rightly of me because I fear man's opinion. When you're shy, because if I get into the arena, people might see that I'm not very good at this, and they'll have a low of opinion of me because I've got a fear of man problem. Do you see how the Bible has us tagged? Look, this is not easy. I got to warn you about this. The diagnostic that the Bible does on our hearts can be very painful because it gets in there. Unlike secular psychiatry, just kind of skims a stone on the surface. Hey, you just need some self-esteem. You just got to fix it. Just think like this, act like this, do this. No. The Bible goes, I'm going to cut you open right at your heart, and we're going to peel back the layers to get to the root of your problem, and it can sting a little bit. For instance, you've got avoidance issues. You don't want that person to see me not looking like this because you got a fear of man problem. You're self-conscious, always aware. What are they thinking? What are they saying? Did they really say that? Do they want it? How do they think about? What did they say? Did anybody ask about me at the? You're overly sensitive. Anybody says anything to you, and you're like, You're oversensitive when somebody says to you, for instance, that seems like a good idea. Really? No, tell me what you really think. Do you really think that's a good idea? Because what do you do? You're mind reading because you want to make sure that they're not really thinking anything bad about you because they're not telling you the truth, because you fear that they've got a different opinion of you. You're easily embarrassed. You've got to have somebody to hold you up, because you are not held up by anything else but other people. You rely on them. A fear of failure because people will think lowly of you. You're given to gossip. You say, how's that a fear of man? Well, what does gossip do? It cuts other people down and it brings you up. It slices them down, chops them down so that they can have a higher opinion of you. Furthermore, if there are other people that you esteem as being better than yourselves, what's the best way to bring them down so you can be on top of them? Chop, slice, dice, backbite, stab them in the back so that they get brought down low so that you look better because you want everybody to think highly of you. You're reactionary. You go off the chart when anybody, hey, I was just thinking maybe tonight we could go to the mall or something. Why? Didn't you like what I made for dinner? You're just, whoa, and you're really defensive. What do you mean by that? Tell me the truth. Is that what you're really? Overblown reactions. And finally, you don't handle rejection well. It crushes you. It brings you down because, yikes, if people don't think highly of me, why? Because you have a fear of man problem.